Hi, I am Roz Mitchell. I am a book in the Simsbury Human Library. The name of my book is Simsbury Open Choice, and I am here to talk about my experiences as a parent of an open choice student. Well, to be honest with you, my family became involved years before I was a mom. This was, I want to say I was like 10 years old. And my aunt, back then, it wasn't called the Open Choice Program, it was called Project Concern. So my aunt Marjorie Little, along with Mary Carroll and Bill Parody, they're the ones who came up with the idea about the busing program. So as a 10-year-old, I remember going up and down the streets in the Hartford's North End, passing out flyers, introducing parents to the program. Fast forward, my daughter and my son. My son is 45, excuse me, and my daughter 35. They both attended the Project Concern. So he went to South Windsor, and my daughter Brittany went to Simsbury. So that's how I became involved years and years ago before they were even thought of. A very big difference because my son, when he attended South Windsor High, he was very popular and active in sports. So some of the experiences that I had with Brittany never happened with my son. There was a lottery, and it was myself and another parent, and we had to pick out of a hat. And I ended up picking Simsbury, and she picked South Windsor. And I really wanted South Windsor because I had experience there. And my mom grew up in South Windsor, so I kind of was familiar with the area. But I ended up getting Simsbury. Well, basically for the better education, more resources, and I felt it would help Brittany with her future. Hartford. I was in Hartford. Yes. From first until 12. She graduated 2007 from the high school. From first grade up until I want to say sixth grade, I would get teased by friends that I would be in Simsbury every weekend because there was always a birthday party or some type of event that she was invited to. So it was very positive, but we did notice that by the seventh grade, the invitations became less. So there wasn't that many invites as she got older. Yeah, so I guess what happened with her was she was just trying to find herself and just trying to fit in, being of the minority in the Simsbury school system. She had friends. She had friends on the bus, and she did form some friendships in Simsbury. She'd do sleepovers and things of that nature. And then she had friends in our community as well. But I did find out later that she did explain to me that she felt she lived in three different worlds. She lived on the bus, and then en route to school, then once she got to school, and then trying to fit into the community once she was home on the weekends. And she'd often get teased as well too, because we didn't allow, we wanted her to pursue speaking properly. So she would get teased and called names for, speaking proper English and in the community. And I remember one day she came home from school and she announced to my husband and I that she had decided she wasn't going to go to college. And we were like, you're not good. She said, yeah, we were on the bus talking and we just decided we're just going to get jobs once we graduate and not go to school. And after a very in-depth conversation with her, that changed. Yeah. She was in the eighth. Yeah. Up bright and early, I want to say like 5. Up, breakfast, getting ready for school, and then bringing her to the bus stop and waiting with her until the bus arrived. And then she's on the bus to school. And then in the afternoon, same thing. She'd get off the bus and we'd pick her up and she'd come home. I think 6:30ish, out the door and back home by like 4:30. So a very long day. She was a part of the band and was able to travel to Florida, which she had a very fun time doing. And then she was a part of, I think she did volleyball for a while. Yeah, so she was active. She had friends. And then I was the Brownie and Girl Scout leader because it was very important to me to be active in the Simsbury school system. We started first grade as the Brownie leader and then up to like the seventh. And then she decided she didn't want to be, a part of it anymore. So then I was like, okay, well, that's fine. That's your choice. No, I did not. And that was kind of hurtful to me because a lot of the mothers knew me as the Brownie and Girl Scout leader. But there would be times when I would visit the schools and I would witness mothers holding on to their purses and whispering amongst themselves. And they would treat me as if I was a stranger. And that was very hurtful because it's like, you know me, you trust me with your children, and you're treating me like this. Mm-hmm. Yes, so that was hurtful. When she goes to high school, it's different. It's a different ball game, and she's meeting other kids from other schools because the middle school that she went to, then she would meet other kids. So she had some pretty positive experiences, but a lot of things she did not share with me until once she graduated. And now I'm just finding out now, like 18 years later, some of the things that she went through and how she will not go anywhere near Simsbury. Yeah, she just will not. My auto mechanic is in Simsbury, and I can't get her to come pick me up. She'd rather send an Uber for me than to come to Simsbury. Well, she did tell me a lot of times, a lot of things that went on in the classroom, she'd get blamed just because she felt it was because of her color. And she said a lot of times, Mommy, it would not be me, but I would always get blamed. She said, and a lot of times she would get called the N-word. And she had one teacher who said to her, when it comes time to take an attendance, instead of me going down the roster and calling the Hartford kids by name, I'm just going to call the Hartford girls Keisha or Quenisha. So, yeah, and Brittany reminded her that her name was Brittany. So, and I did not know anything about that until of recent. Well, she did have, and back then they had host, I'm not sure about now, but they did have host families. So a lot of times if she did do after school activities, she would be able to go to the family's home, and she would have dinner, and then my husband or I would pick her up later on that evening. So she did have a lot of friends who encouraged her. When we had birthday parties, a lot of kids would come to her birthday parties and a lot of kids would not. And she did hear from one parent that their child was not coming because we lived in Hartford. She enjoyed it, and I did too, because Sandy, I'll never forget her. They have since moved away from Simsbury, but she would invite me over, and we would have conversations on the phone, and I would tell her things of how I would be feeling, and she would, be apologetic and show empathy, and just, let me know that she was sorry that it was happening to me, and that, and I realized that all people aren't bad people. All non-white people aren't bad. All white people aren't bad. We just, in each race, there's some need for change. Because she felt that the education piece was more important to me than her piece. So she kept it from me. So now what we do is we talk about it. When she wants to talk about it, it's not a thing where I'll just say, so tell me about Simsbury. No, it's when she feels comfortable, and then that's when we have the conversations. And I did speak to her and suggest that she get counseling. So she is going through counseling. And she's doing quite well for herself. She's the assistant manager over at Children's Medical Center in the security department. So she's doing quite well. I was blessed some years ago to purchase my childhood home in Hartford. So she's my tenant, and she lives on one floor. And I run a nonprofit organization called Rejoice on the second floor. So on the second floor, we have a classroom, we have a sewing room, my office is there, and a fully equipped kitchen for my youth that come in the summertime. We do an 8-week program, and we teach life skills to them: etiquette training, financial literacy, gardening, healthy home cooking, and meal planning. So we teach that as well. I think her critical thinking skills and her way of just learning to deal with adversity has helped her. Yeah. So it helped her a lot, especially in the role she plays now at the hospital, because she comes into contact with folks from all walks of life. Yeah. Well, because of you and the others who are involved with the Human Library, it's given me a chance to talk about it, to get it out. Because I buried it for years. I never talked about it. And then when Britt decided she wanted to have the conversation, it was like, oh, so we both need some healing. So that's when I started to go for therapy, and she did too. And just being able to talk about it and have a listening ear. And the event that we had last Saturday, having folks come and sit and listen to my story, and then having them tell me about their experiences. I met some really groovy, cool people this past Saturday. Yeah. To be as visible as possible, to be there, to make sure you attend the PTO meetings, make sure you go to the parent-teacher conferences. I know a lot of parents work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, but make that time, carve that time out so that you can be there for your kids. And unfortunately, I didn't find out what Britt was going through until a lot of years later. But try to look for those signs and ask questions without prying too much, but ask questions and pay attention. And see, with Brittany, as far as the signs, I never had any issues with having her go to bed on time. I never had any issues with her waking up on time. She got her homework done. Grades were good. So I think because of what she was going through, she threw herself into her academics. So if you are seeing your children who are withdrawn, who don't want to talk about school, who don't want to be involved in the extracurricular activities, make sure you try to have that conversation with them. And just because I would just show up at Simsbury on any given day. Yeah, I would take a lunch and just come out and just visit. Great question, and I think it begins at the top. So you have to get the administrators, and you provide that extra training, the cultural diversity. Bring them into Hartford, do like a bus trip, and have them travel through their communities and realize and witness where the scholars grow up and what they go through. I think that would help with sensitivity. And then also, even with the students who are in Simsbury, meet with them and let them know, try to stamp out the stereotyping, because that's a big part of it. They don't know, and if you don't know, you just don't know. So I would say, just educate folks and let them know that what you have heard or what you may have seen or witnessed may not be the case. Give people a fair chance. Don't judge a person by the color of their skin. I think you need to implement the host family program again to start out. Because I remember we would have different events at night, and the host families would come with the Hartford families, and we would sit together and have a meal, and we would talk and chat. And they would learn a lot about us, and we would learn a lot about them. And it would stamp out a lot of the stereotypes that they had about us that just wasn't true. I think it was. And each day when I think back, there are days when I think back, I can only pray that it was worth it. Because on the other hand, had she been enrolled in a Hartford school, she would have still been teased because she was called Oreo. She was teased and told she acted white. So either way, whether she went to a Hartford school system or Simsbury, there still would have been issues. But because we chose to keep her in Simsbury, the resources that were made available to her were much more. And she's learned a lot. Oh yeah, she went to Dean College for 2 years, and then she transferred over to U of H. So she has her degree in criminology. And that was a definite plus. By her being a student in the Simsbury school system, she was more than prepared for college, yes. She had 2 friends that I think they could talk about everything to. And I would hear them on the phone, and I would hear, because she has this laugh, and I would be like, what the heck are they talking about now? So it was that gut wrenching laugh that she would have. So she had two people that she could really relate to, and one guy, his name was Colin. They were really good friends. So she was able to get through the school, and I think that helped a lot too with what she was going through, because maybe she was discussing what she was going through with them because she didn't discuss it with me. So maybe that helped with her having the conversations with them. I don't, trying to think how the conversation even started. When I was asked to be a part of the Human Library. And I thought it would be a great idea for her and I to do it together. And when I did ask her, she said, absolutely not. And that's when she started opening up. So had this opportunity had not been afforded to me, I may not have even known what she was going through. I said yes. She said no. I said to myself, I can't say no now. I've committed. So I've got to do it. And then it was like my higher anointing said, this is your healing. This is your way of healing. This is it. Because for years, and the way the parents made me feel, I never discussed it with Brittany. Because I wrote my little piece and I had her read it. And she was like, wow, you went through that? I'm like, yeah. Yeah. So that's when we started having the open dialogue and talking about it, yeah. Not only is it a good education and it's preparing you for college or a career, it has a cost as far as your emotions, your physical, your mental. It has a cost. But that's anywhere you go, I think, Nicole. I think that's in Hartford, East Hartford, Simsbury, in the suburbans as opposed to the inner city. There's a cost. Include administration, and when they see things that they know aren't right, when they hear things that are being said by their staff, stop it right there. Yeah, because Brittany would tell me that the teachers would hear the kids call her the N-word and they would not correct them. Yeah, she would witness teachers smirking. So that right there is not good. So as an adult who's there to teach the kids and educate the kids, educate them thoroughly and fully. And I'm not sure like when the buses arrive now and the kids are called to go to the bus, I'm hoping they no longer say the Hartford bus. I'm hoping they have a bus number for the kids. Because that was something when I would be at the school for the scout meetings, I would hear them announce Hartford buses here. So I'm hoping they eventually gave the bus a number. Back when my two attended, there was a bus monitor who would ride on the bus with them into the town and stay at the school with the kids for the entire day. And the funny thing about that, Brittany and Devin both had the same bus monitor, Mrs. Jenkins. Yeah. She's no longer with us, but they both had the same bus monitor because my kids are 10 years apart. I would encourage them to do their research and research both sides. The reason for the program, the reason to enroll in the program, as opposed to just coming up with conclusions on not wanting to be a part of. Yeah, because there's truth on both sides. And we have to listen and pay attention, especially when you compare the Hartford school system to the Simsbury school system. The resources in Simsbury far outweigh the resources in Hartford. think it benefits both because the Simsbury students get to learn more, and they may have heard about a lot of different stereotypes that are non-existent. So once they get to meet Harvard students, it'll hit them like, wait, what I've heard is not what I'm seeing, what I'm witnessing. So yeah, I think it will be a win-win as long as we're open-minded. We have to remain open-minded. That's a definite must. To be encouraged to change, and if you hear someone speaking badly about any race, correct them. Yeah, be the one to make that difference. Break that curse. You be the one to say, no, that's not right. I know of people, and they're not all like that, because it happens with me. My friends want to talk about Caucasians or what other race, and I speak up. I'm like, no, that's not true. You're making general. No, that's not true. Mm-mm. What you're saying is a general accusation, and I have not come across that. And if you hear things that just aren't true or that you haven't witnessed, put a stop to it right then. Don't be the one to carry it to another person to start that gossip. Yeah, just stop, because the world is already crazy. We can do things to make it less crazy, less judgmental.